How to Become a Millionaire on a 9-to-5 Salary. Most people believe the biggest lie ever told about money. They believe that a 9-to-5 job is the reason they'll never be rich. They believe the paycheck is the prison. They believe the salary is the ceiling. And because of that belief, they stop thinking, they stop planning, they stop seeing. But what if the job was never the problem? What if the real enemy was the way you think about that job? Because here's the truth that almost nobody wants to hear. Millions of millionaires were once employees. Thousands of them still are. They didn't escape wealth despite the 9-to-5. They built wealth through it. Not by working harder, not by grinding themselves into exhaustion, but by using the system while everyone else was trapped inside it. This audiobook is not about fantasy. It's not about luck. It's not about quitting your job tomorrow and manifesting abundance. This is about control. Control of your money, control of your time, control of your decisions, control of your future. This is how to become a millionaire on a 9-to-5 salary. And if you listen closely, if you don't just hear these words but apply them, you will never look at your paycheck the same way again. Chapter 1. Hey there! Write in the comments what you'd like us to talk about in the next video. We promise to read all the comments and pick the best and most relevant topics. Thanks. Chapter 1. Why most 9-to-5 workers stay poor. Let's start with something uncomfortable. Most people with jobs are not broke because they earn too little. They're broke because they were never taught what money is for. They think income is the goal. But income is not the goal. Income is the fuel. And if you don't know how to use fuel, you burn it and go nowhere. The average employee lives like this. Money comes in. Bills go out. The rest disappears. No direction, no structure, no strategy. And then they blame the job. But look closer. Two people can earn the same salary. One stays broke forever. The other becomes financially free. Same paycheck, different thinking. Because wealth is not built by how much you make. Wealth is built by what you do next. And most people do nothing. They wait, they hope, they complain, they spend their future on comfort today, and they repeat this cycle for 30, 40, 50 years, until retirement becomes fear instead of freedom. That's not a money problem, that's a mindset problem. Chapter 2. The paycheck is not your life, it's your tool. Here's a shift that changes everything. Your salary is not your identity, it's not your worth, it's not your destiny. It is a tool that can either trap you or launch you. Most people treat their paycheck like oxygen. They spend all of it just to breathe another month. Millionaires treat paychecks like weapons. They deploy them. They aim them. They use them to buy freedom, piece by piece. The job gives you one critical advantage most people waste: predictable cash flow. Predictability is power. It allows planning. It allows leverage. It allows systems. While others panic about survival, you can build, but only if you stop seeing your job as the end and start seeing it as the engine. Chapter 3. Why more money won't save you. Most employees say the same thing. If I just made more, everything would change. No, it wouldn't. More money with the same habits equals bigger problems. More income doesn't fix broken thinking, it amplifies it. That's why raises disappear. That's why bonuses vanish. That's why lottery winners go broke. Because money doesn't create discipline. It reveals it. Before you earn more, you must become someone who can keep more. Before you grow income, you must grow control. And control starts with one decision. You stop living paycheck to paycheck. Not when you earn more, but when you decide to. Hang on a sec. Dear viewers, please write in the comments what assets you buy or are interested in. Perhaps these are stocks, or maybe cryptocurrency. It is interesting to see how you structure your investment portfolio. Also, please write what you think about real estate. Is it still relevant to buy flats today? Chapter 4, The Real Escape Plan. Most people think escaping the 9-to-5 means quitting. Wrong. Quitting without assets is just unemployment with stress. The real escape plan is simple. You don't replace your job with freedom. You replace it with ownership. Ownership of assets. Ownership of systems. Ownership of income that doesn't require your presence. Your job funds the build. Your evenings build the machine. Your weekends buy your future, not forever, just long enough. The wealthy understand something the poor never learn. Short-term sacrifice buys permanent leverage. And the 9-to-5 is the safest funding source you'll ever have, if you know how to use it. Chapter 5. The moment you stop being just an employee. There is a moment, quiet, internal, when everything shifts. It's when you stop asking, how do I survive this job? And start asking, how do I use this job? That's the moment you stop being a worker and start being a builder. You stop counting hours. You start counting moves. You stop spending for status. You start investing for control. And slowly, quietly, invisibly, you begin separating from the crowd. Because while they talk about weekends, you're designing exits. While they wait for promotions, you're creating options. While they fear losing the job, you're preparing to outgrow it. And that's where the real journey begins. Because next, we need to talk about the most dangerous trap of all. The lifestyle that keeps people poor even when they earn more. And why escaping it is the first real step toward becoming a millionaire. We are moving on to the next part of the audiobook. The lifestyle trap that keeps people poor. The most dangerous thing that can happen to someone with a 9-to-5 salary is not a low income. It's a comfortable one. Because comfort kills urgency. Comfort kills vision. Comfort kills growth. When your paycheck rises just enough to cover nicer clothes, a better phone, a newer car, and a slightly bigger apartment, something subtle happens. You feel successful, but you're not free. You're just more trapped at a higher level. This is the lifestyle trap, and it destroys more potential millionaires than lack of opportunity ever could. Here's how it works. Money comes in. Instead of asking, how can this money buy me freedom? Most people ask, what can I upgrade? The car gets nicer. The rent gets higher, the subscriptions multiply, the obligations grow. And suddenly, the same paycheck that once felt like relief now feels tight again. Not because it's small, but because it's been assigned. That's how lifestyle inflation quietly steals your future. Chapter 6. Why rich people live below their means at first. You've heard the phrase before. Live below your means. Most people misunderstand it. They think it means suffering, deprivation, no joy. That's not what it means. It means delaying consumption until ownership replaces effort. Wealthy people don't hate nice things. They just refuse to buy them with their future. They understand something critical. Every dollar spent today is a worker you could have hired for tomorrow. So while others upgrade lifestyles, the future-rich upgrade systems. They buy assets before aesthetics, leverage before luxury, control before comfort, not because they're cheap, but because they're strategic. They know comfort is best enjoyed when it's permanent, not rented month to month. Chapter 7. the rule of non-negotiable investing. Here's a rule that changes everything. Before you pay anyone else, you pay your future. Not if there's money left, not when things get better. First, every single time. This is not optional. This is not flexible. This is not emotional. It's mechanical. A fixed percentage of your income must be redirected away from consumption and toward ownership. Even if it feels small, even if it feels slow, because consistency beats intensity, and discipline beats motivation. Most people wait until they feel ready to invest. The wealthy invest until they become ready. That's the difference. Chapter 8. Why saving alone will never make you rich. Let's be clear. Saving is important, but saving alone will never make you wealthy. Saving preserves money. Investing multiplies it. If all you do is save, you're just storing energy you never use. Inflation erodes it. Fear protects it. Time wastes it. Money must move to grow. It must be placed where effort is no longer required, where time does the work, where systems produce results. Your goal is not to hoard cash. Your goal is to convert cash into assets. Assets that work while you sleep. Assets that don't call in sick. Assets that don't demand your presence. Because freedom doesn't come from having money. It comes from having money that moves without you. Chapter 9. The shift from earning to building. Most employees live in an earning mindset. How much can I make this month? How do I get the next raise? How do I survive another year? Millionaires live in a building mindset. What can I own? What can I automate? What will still pay me in 5 years? This shift is subtle, but permanent. When you start thinking like a builder, your job changes meaning. It stops being your identity. It becomes your funding source. You stop emotionally attaching to it. You stop fearing it. You stop depending on it for confidence, and instead you extract value from it, calmly, strategically, relentlessly. Chapter 10. Why time, not money, is the real battle. People say they don't have money to invest. That's rarely true. What they really don't have is time discipline. They trade hours for comfort. They trade evenings for entertainment. They trade weekends for distraction. And then they wonder why nothing changes. Millionaires are ruthless with time long before they're rich. They protect it. They schedule it. They invest it. Because time compounds faster than money ever will. An hour spent building assets today is worth 10 spent later. An evening invested consistently becomes leverage. And leverage, over time, becomes freedom. Chapter 11. The quiet separation. At some point, something strange happens. You stop talking about money. You stop arguing with people who don't get it. You stop explaining your choices because you've separated, not loudly, not dramatically, quietly. While others spend to feel rich, you build to be rich. While others chase appearances, you chase control. While others complain about the system, you learn how to use it. And that's when your life starts to diverge, because wealth is not a moment, it's a process. And you've just committed to it. But commitment alone isn't enough. Next, we need to talk about where your money should go. Not theories, not hype, but the types of assets that actually create independence for people starting from nothing on a 9-to-5 salary. That's where things get real. We are moving on to the next part of the audiobook, where your money must go and where it must never go. If you want to become a millionaire on a 9-to-5 salary, you must understand one brutal truth. Not all money is equal. Some money feeds your future. Some money feeds your ego. And some money quietly destroys your chances without you ever noticing. Most people never learn the difference. That's why they work hard for decades and still end up tired, anxious, and dependent. This chapter is about direction, because income without direction is chaos, and chaos never builds wealth. Chapter 12. Hang on a sec, mate. Write which city you're from. It's interesting to see which corners of the world are watching our videos. Chapter 12. The 3 destinations of every dollar. Every dollar you earn goes to one of 3 places. There are no exceptions. 1. Consumption. 2. Preservation. 3. Production. Consumption is spending. Preservation is saving. Production is investing. Most people send nearly all their money to consumption, a small portion to savings, and almost nothing to production. That's backwards. Consumption should be last. Production should be first. Because only production creates independence. Only production breaks the paycheck cycle. Only production allows money to return with friends. If your money doesn't come back, it wasn't an investment. It was entertainment. Chapter 13. Why your house is not your freedom. This will challenge what you've been taught. Your house is not your freedom. It's shelter. It may be emotional security. It may be a symbol of stability. But unless it produces income, it is not an asset in the way you need. It doesn't pay you. It demands maintenance. It locks you into fixed costs. And it often forces you to stay employed longer than necessary. This doesn't mean owning a home is wrong. It means buying one too early can delay wealth for decades. Millionaires buy houses when they no longer have to worry about payments. Most people buy houses to feel successful and then work their entire lives to keep them. Freedom comes from income that arrives without permission, not from square footage. Chapter 14. The first assets you should focus on. If you're starting from nothing, your first assets should have 3 qualities. 1. Low barrier to entry. 2. Scalable over time. 3. Detachable from your physical presence. This means skills that can be monetized digitally, businesses that don't require inventory, investments that compound automatically, systems that earn without supervision. Your first goal is not massive profit. It's proof of concept, proof that money can be created without trading hours. That moment changes you. Once you experience money arriving while you're not working, you can never go back. Chapter 15. Why skills come before capital. People say, I don't have money to invest. That's usually true at first, which is why your most valuable asset early on is skill. Skills turn time into leverage. Skills compress learning curves. Skills attract opportunity. Skills allow you to create income streams from thin air. Coding, sales, marketing, design, writing, negotiation, management. These are not hobbies. They are income multipliers. The wealthy don't see skills as self-improvement. They see them as infrastructure, and infrastructure always pays. Chapter 16. The myth of one big break. Most people are waiting for a moment, a raise, an inheritance, a lucky investment, a breakthrough idea. This waiting mindset is poison. Wealth is not created by one decision. It's created by repetition. Small investments made consistently, skills applied repeatedly, income streams built layer by layer. There is no explosion. There is accumulation. And accumulation favors the patient and disciplined, not the hopeful. The people who win are not the smartest. They are the most consistent. Chapter 17. Why debt is a tool and a trap. Debt is neither good nor evil. It is a magnifier. Used correctly, it accelerates growth. Used emotionally, it destroys lives. Debt for consumption enslaves. Debt for production can liberate. The rule is simple. If debt does not create cash flow that exceeds its cost, it is dangerous. If it increases dependence on your job, it is poison. Millionaires don't fear debt. They fear unproductive debt, and they respect leverage the way amateurs respect luck. Chapter 18, The Real Risk. No one talks about. People think investing is risky. It's not. Dependence is risky. Relying on one income source, relying on one employer, relying on one skill, relying on one economy, that is risk. Ownership reduces risk. Diversification reduces fear. Multiple income streams create resilience, and resilience creates confidence. You don't build wealth to feel rich. You build it to feel unstoppable. Chapter 19, The Moment You Stop Seeking Permission. Something powerful happens when you start owning assets. You stop asking for approval. You stop fearing layoffs. You stop shrinking in conversations. Because when your survival no longer depends on pleasing others, your posture changes, your voice changes, your decisions sharpen. That's when people start noticing, not because you told them, but because energy cannot be hidden. The next stage is the hardest, because it requires patience, delayed gratification, and the ability to work without applause. In the next part, we'll break down how to build multiple income streams while working full-time, without burnout, without overwhelm, and without sacrificing your sanity. This is where most people quit, and where future millionaires separate permanently. We're moving on to the next part of the audiobook, Building Wealth While Working Full-Time Without Burnout. This is where reality hits, because knowing what to do is easy. Doing it while working a 9-to-5 is where most people fail, not because they're lazy, but because they misunderstand energy, timing, and leverage. If you try to build wealth the same way you work your job, you will burn out, and burnout kills momentum faster than failure ever could. So this chapter is about how to build without breaking. Chapter 20, Why Most Side Hustles Fail. Most side hustles fail for one reason. They demand the same type of energy as your job. Same stress, same hours, same mental exhaustion. You get home tired and try to do something that requires the same focus you've already spent. That's not discipline. That's sabotage. The solution is not work harder. The solution is work differently. Chapter 21, The Two Types of Energy. There are two kinds of energy: active energy, physical, focused, draining; creative energy, strategic, calm, expansive. Your job uses active energy. Your wealth must be built with creative energy. That means thinking systems, not tasks. Building once, earning repeatedly. Creating assets that grow when you rest. If your side income feels like another job, it's not wealth building, it's overtime. Chapter 22, The 90-Minute Rule That Changes Everything. Here's the truth most people don't want to hear. You don't need hours. You need consistency. 90 focused minutes a day, that's it. But those minutes must be sacred. No phone, no scrolling, no noise. Those minutes are for learning income-producing skills, building systems, creating leverage, designing future income. 90 minutes a day for 1 year beats 10-hour bursts once a month. Wealth is built in silence, and silence requires boundaries. Chapter 23, Why You Must Separate Income from Progress. Your job pays you income. Your future pays you progress. If you confuse the two, you'll never escape. Income keeps you alive. Progress sets you free. This means some days produce no money, some weeks show no results. Some months feel invisible, and that's normal. Progress compounds quietly. Income compounds publicly. Millionaires know how to live through invisible seasons. That's why they win. Chapter 24. Building systems instead of chasing money. Chasing money is exhausting. Building systems is strategic. Systems include automated investments, scalable digital products, businesses that don't require constant presence, processes that replace effort. The goal is not quick cash. The goal is repeatability. 1 win is luck. 10 consistent wins is a system. Chapter 25. The power of uneven effort. Not all effort is equal. Some actions change everything. Most actions change nothing. Wealthy people identify high-leverage moves and ignore the rest. Examples: 1 skill that multiplies income, 1 investment that compounds for years, 1 business model that scales infinitely, 1 network connection that opens doors. If your effort doesn't scale, it should not dominate your time. Chapter 26. Why comfort is your real enemy. Your job makes you comfortable. Comfort dulls urgency. Urgency creates focus. Focus creates momentum. Momentum creates wealth. This doesn't mean suffering. It means refusing to settle, refusing to let good enough steal your future, refusing to trade freedom for convenience. The most dangerous place is not poverty. It's comfortable survival. Chapter 27. The mental shift that changes everything. At some point, you stop asking, "How much does this pay?" and start asking, "How does this scale?" That's the millionaire question. When your thinking shifts from short-term reward to long-term leverage, you've crossed the line. Most people never do. That's why the gap grows wider every year. Chapter 28. The quiet confidence of ownership. When you start building assets, even small ones, something changes internally. You stop feeling trapped. You stop feeling rushed. You stop panicking about the future because you know you're building options. Options are freedom in its earliest form, and freedom is built long before it's felt. This is where discipline becomes destiny, because the next phase isn't about starting, it's about not stopping. In the next part, we'll expose the psychological traps that keep 9-to-5 earners stuck forever, even when they earn more money. This is where mindset either evolves or silently sabotages everything. We are moving on to the next part of the audiobook, the psychology that keeps 9-to-5 workers stuck, even when they earn more. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Most people don't stay poor because they don't earn enough. They stay poor because their thinking never evolves. And this chapter is not about money. It's about identity. Because income grows only as fast as self-image allows. Chapter 29. Why pay raises don't create wealth. A raise feels like progress, but most raises only upgrade lifestyle, not freedom. New car, better apartment, more subscriptions, higher expectations, and suddenly you're earning more but feeling just as trapped. That's not an accident. That's conditioning. The system teaches you to spend every upgrade. Wealth requires breaking that reflex. Chapter 30. The safe path. Lie. You were taught this formula. Go to school, get a job, be loyal, climb slowly. But safety is not stability. Safety is dependence. If your income stops when you stop, you don't have security. You have permission, and permission can be revoked. Millionaires don't reject jobs. They reject dependency. Chapter 31. Why smart people stay broke. Intelligence is not the problem. Overthinking is. Smart people analyze forever. They wait for certainty. They want guarantees. But wealth rewards decisive action, not perfect planning. Every wealthy person you admire moved before they felt ready, while others waited for clarity. They built momentum. Momentum beats intelligence every time. Chapter 32. The Fear of Outgrowing Your Environment. Friend, write your opinion on this topic in the comments. Do you agree with us or not? I'm interested to hear your thoughts. This is the fear no one talks about. When you grow, relationships change. Conversations shift. You stop relating to complaints. You stop bonding over struggle. And that scares people. So they stay small. Not because they lack ambition, but because they fear isolation. Here's the truth. You will lose some connections, but you will gain alignment, and alignment is priceless. Chapter 33. Why comfortable struggle is addictive. Struggle can become familiar. Familiar feels safe. Safe feels comfortable. So people repeat the same problems because at least they know how to survive them. Wealth requires entering unknown territory, where you don't feel competent yet, where ego takes a hit, where growth feels awkward. That discomfort is the price of expansion. Chapter 34. The I'll start later trap. Later is the most expensive word you'll ever use. Later costs compounding. Later delays learning. Later builds regret. The people who win don't wait for perfect timing. They move while tired. They build while uncertain. They act while afraid. Because fear fades after action. Regret doesn't. Chapter 35. Why your job should fund, not define you. Your job is a tool, not an identity, not a destiny, not a life sentence. It's fuel. Fuel for learning, fuel for investing, fuel for building assets. The mistake is letting the job become the goal. The job should finance your exit, not replace your dreams. Chapter 36. The shift from consumer to creator. Consumers spend. Creators build. Consumers chase pleasure. Creators chase leverage. The moment you start creating content, systems, products, value, your financial trajectory changes because creators get paid repeatedly. Consumers pay repeatedly. Choose carefully. Chapter 37. Why time is your most misused asset. Money can be earned back. Time cannot. If you trade time only for wages, you cap your upside. Millionaires trade time for ownership, equity, skills, assets, influence. They buy back their time with leverage. That's the game. Chapter 38. The day you realize no one is coming. At some point, a realization hits. No one is coming to save you, no boss, no government, no miracle opportunity. And strangely, that's freeing because responsibility gives power. The moment you accept full ownership of your outcomes, everything changes. This is the mental line in the sand, the point where excuses lose their grip. In the next part, we'll break down the exact stages of escaping the paycheck cycle, from survival to stability to ownership. This is where strategy replaces hope. We are moving on to the next part of the audiobook, from paycheck survival to wealth ownership. The escape sequence. If you've made it this far, something inside you already knows the truth. You were not meant to spend your entire life reacting to bills. You were not born to count down Fridays. You were not designed to trade decades for a retirement promise that may never arrive. This chapter is about transition, not fantasy, not hype, but the real, uncomfortable, necessary shift from employee thinking to owner thinking. Chapter 39. The 3 stages every self-made millionaire passes through. No one jumps from broke to rich. There are stages. Ignore them and you burn out. Respect them and you escape. Stage 1. Survival. This is where most people live forever. Income equals expenses. One emergency breaks everything. Your only job here is stabilization, not luxury, not lifestyle upgrades. Stability. Chapter 40. The rule of stage 1. Protect cash flow. At this stage, cash flow is oxygen. You don't invest aggressively yet. You don't gamble. You don't look rich. You protect your ability to breathe. That means cutting silent leaks, eliminating ego spending, building a buffer. Wealth begins with control, not consumption. Chapter 41. Why most people fail in stage 1. They want results too fast. They skip fundamentals. They chase shortcuts before discipline. But money amplifies who you already are. If you're reckless with little, you'll be reckless with more. Stage 1 teaches restraint, and restraint is power. Chapter 42. Stage 2. Stability without stagnation. This is where things change. You're no longer panicking. Bills are covered. You can think clearly. Now the danger becomes comfort, because comfort kills urgency, and urgency is fuel. Chapter 43. The real purpose of a 9-to-5. Your job is not the enemy. Misusing it is. A 9-to-5 is predictable income, skill development, risk buffer. Millionaires use jobs as launch pads, not cages. They extract value while building exits. Chapter 44. Building your first wealth vehicle. This is where ownership begins. Not necessarily a business yet, but something that scales beyond ours. Examples: skills with leverage, digital assets, systems that repeat, ownership stakes. The key question becomes, can this earn without my constant presence? If not, it's still a job. Chapter 45. Why side income is not the goal. Extra money feels good, but side income without leverage becomes side exhaustion. The goal is transferable effort. Work once. Get paid many times. That's the definition of an asset. Chapter 46. Stage 3. Ownership thinking. This is where the real separation happens. You stop asking, how much do I earn? And start asking, what do I own? Ownership changes how you see time. You think in decades, you think in systems, you think in compounding effects. Chapter 47. The wealth equation. Most people never learn income plus time, burnout income plus ownership, shocks freedom. This is why high earners can still be broke and average earners can become wealthy. Ownership multiplies effort. Chapter 48. The moment you stop seeking approval, employees seek permission. Owners seek outcomes. At this stage, you stop explaining yourself. You stop seeking validation. You stop needing people to get it, because results speak, and silence builds momentum. Chapter 49. Why sacrifice is non-negotiable. Let's be clear. You will give things up: comfort, entertainment, certain relationships, immediate gratification. Anyone promising wealth without sacrifice is lying. But sacrifice is temporary. Regret lasts forever. Chapter 50. The first time money works without you. There is a moment, small at first, when you earn while asleep, when something you built pays you back. It may be $5, it may be $50. It doesn't matter. That moment changes everything, because now you know it's possible. This is the turning point. In the next part, we'll expose the habits that quietly keep people trapped even after they start earning more, and how to eliminate them permanently. This is where discipline replaces motivation, and systems replace willpower. We are moving on to the next part of the audiobook, the habits that keep you poor, even when you earn more. Now listen carefully. This is where most people fail after they start making progress. Not at zero, not when they're struggling. They fail after the raise, after the side income, after the first taste of momentum. Because Income alone does not create wealth. Behavior does. Chapter 51. Why more money often makes people broke faster. This sounds backwards, but it's real. When income rises and identity stays the same, destruction accelerates. More spending, bigger commitments, higher fixed costs, less flexibility. This is lifestyle inflation, and it quietly resets your prison walls. Chapter 52. The poor habit of rewarding yourself too soon. Every time money comes in, most people ask, "What can I buy?" The wealthy ask, "What can this build?" Rewarding yourself before you build assets is how progress dies. Discipline delays pleasure, and delayed pleasure multiplies power. Chapter 53. Why comfort is the most dangerous drug. Pain motivates, fear focuses, hunger sharpens, comfort numbs. Once people feel okay, urgency fades. They stop pushing, they stop learning, they stop building, and slowly, quietly, they settle. Never settle. Chapter 54. The trap of looking successful: cars, clothes, vacation status. None of these make you wealthy. They only make you visible. The rich value control, not applause. Control of time, control of choices, control of direction. Visibility can wait. Freedom cannot. Chapter 55. Why busy is not the same as productive. Most workers are exhausted, not because they're building wealth, but because they're reacting. Emails, meetings, notifications, urgent nonsense. The wealthy ruthlessly eliminate low-value tasks. They protect energy like capital, because it is. Chapter 56. The mental shift that changes everything. Stop thinking, "How hard am I working?" Start thinking, "How effective is this effort?" Effort without leverage is a treadmill, and treadmills don't move you forward. Chapter 57. How the rich think about expenses. They don't ask, "Can I afford this?" They ask, "Does this increase my earning ability?" If it doesn't grow income, skills, health, or time, it's a liability, even if it feels good. Chapter 58. The dangerous habit of comparison. Comparison destroys focus. Someone is always ahead. Someone is always louder. Someone always looks richer. But wealth is not a race. It's a construction project. And looking at other people's buildings won't lay your bricks. Chapter 59. Why most people quit right before it works. Because results lag effort. Always. The grind comes first. The silence comes second. The breakthrough comes last. People quit in the quiet. The wealthy stay. Chapter 60. Building an unbreakable financial identity. At this stage, you stop identifying as a worker, a spender, a consumer. You become a builder, an owner, a long-term thinker. Identity drives behavior, and behavior creates outcomes. Chapter 61. How to structure your life around growth. Your calendar tells the truth. If it's full of consumption, distraction, and noise, your results will reflect that. Wealthy people schedule learning, creation, planning, reflection. They don't wait for time. They design it. Chapter 62. The power of boring consistency. There's nothing exciting about wealth building. It's repetitive, unsexy, predictable, which is why it works. Flashy fades. Consistency compounds. Chapter 63. The point where most people turn back. This is the dangerous moment. When progress is visible, but slow. When effort is high, but rewards are modest. When quitting feels reasonable. This is where separation happens. Those who push through become wealthy. Those who stop become stories. Chapter 64. Why you must think in decades, not months. Real wealth takes time, not because it's hard, but because compounding needs patience. Short-term thinking creates short-term results. Long-term thinking creates permanent freedom. Chapter 65. The final weakness that ruins potential emotional spending. Buying to feel better, spending to escape stress, purchasing comfort instead of progress. Money is a tool, not therapy. Learn to sit with discomfort. It passes. Regret lasts. This is where discipline becomes destiny. In the next part, we will break down the exact systems and routines that turn average 9-to-5 earners into long-term millionaires without burnout, without luck, and without shortcuts. This is where structure replaces struggle. We are moving on to the next part of the audiobook, the systems that turn a 9-to-5 into a wealth machine. Now we move from mindset to mechanics, because belief without structure is hope, and hope is not a plan. This is where wealth stops being emotional and becomes engineered. Chapter 66. Why systems beat motivation every time motivation is unreliable. Some days you feel unstoppable. Other days you feel empty. The wealthy don't rely on feelings. They rely on systems. A system works even when you don't feel like it. And wealth is built on the days you don't feel inspired. Chapter 67. The core. Wealth system. Pay your future first. Most people do this backward. They pay bills, they spend, they enjoy what's left. The wealthy reverse the order. They invest first, build assets first, secure growth first, then they live on what remains. This one habit alone separates futures. Chapter 68. Turning your paycheck into a seed, not a crutch. Your salary is not the goal. It's the fuel. Every paycheck should answer one question. What part of this creates freedom later? If the answer is nothing, you're working for survival, not wealth. Chapter 69. The 3-bucket money structure. The wealthy mentally divide money into 3 buckets. 1. Survival, basic living costs. 2. Growth, assets, skills, leverage. 3. Optional enjoyment. Only after growth is funded, most people only have bucket 1 and wonder why they never escape. Chapter 70. Why side income is not optional anymore. Inflation doesn't care how hard you work. Companies don't reward loyalty forever. Security no longer comes from jobs. It comes from multiple income streams. Even a small side income changes your psychology. You stop feeling trapped. Chapter 71. What to build first and what to ignore. Not all opportunities are equal. Early on, focus on skills that scale, income tied to output, not hours, assets that grow without constant presence. Ignore hype. Ignore shortcuts. Ignore anything you don't understand. Confusion is expensive. Chapter 72. How the rich use routines to create leverage. They don't find time. They lock it in. Same hours, same habits, same focus. Consistency creates momentum. Momentum reduces effort. And effort is the most expensive resource you have. Chapter 73. Why tracking your money changes your destiny. What you don't track, you can't control. The wealthy know exactly where money comes from, where it leaks, where it multiplies. Clarity creates power. Vagueness creates anxiety. Chapter 74. The moment you stop needing permission. If you appreciate our efforts and our thoughts, subscribe and like this video. We need to show the world that there are many people like us. We must always continue to improve. This is subtle, but life-changing. At some point, your side systems begin producing. Not enough to quit, but enough to breathe, enough to say no, enough to wait, enough to choose. That's the moment fear loosens its grip. And here's the truth most people never hear. You don't need millions to feel free. You need control. Control over time. Control over decisions. Control over direction. In the next part, we'll expose the final transformation, how discipline turns into inevitability, and how wealth becomes less about money and more about who you've become. This is where it all locks in. We are moving on to the next part of the audiobook, when discipline turns into identity and wealth becomes inevitable. There is a phase almost no one talks about because it doesn't look dramatic. It doesn't feel exciting. It doesn't get applause. But this phase decides everything. It's the moment when discipline stops feeling like effort and starts feeling like who you are. Chapter 75. The quiet shift that changes your life. At first, you force habits. You force yourself to save. You force yourself to learn. You force yourself to work after hours. It feels heavy. Then one day, it doesn't. You no longer debate. You no longer negotiate with yourself. You just act. That's identity replacing motivation. Chapter 76. Why most people quit right before this point. Because the rewards lag behind the effort. Early on, you work more than you earn. You learn more than you profit. You sacrifice more than you gain. Most people interpret this as failure. The wealthy understand it as incubation. Chapter 77. The compound effect no one can see. Small actions feel pointless in isolation, but stacked daily, they bend reality. 1 hour a day, 1 habit a week, 1 skill mastered slowly. Compounding is invisible at first, then unstoppable. Chapter 78. How self-respect becomes your strongest asset. Here's the real reward of discipline, self-trust. When you do what you said you'd do, you become dangerous, not loud, not aggressive, but unshakable. You stop seeking validation. You stop chasing approval. You move with calm certainty. Chapter 79. Why wealthy people are so patient. Because patience isn't passive. It's active restraint. They know when to wait, when to hold, when to ignore noise. Patience protects progress. Impatience destroys it. Chapter 80. The final mental upgrade. At this level, money stops being emotional. It's no longer about fear, or proving anything, or escaping pain. It becomes a tool, a way to design life, a way to protect time, a way to create options. That's real wealth. Chapter 81. From paycheck thinking to legacy thinking. Most people ask, how much do I make this month? The wealthy ask, what does this build in 5 years? Legacy thinking changes decisions. It makes shortcuts unattractive. It makes consistency powerful. It makes long-term vision non-negotiable. Chapter 82. Why you no longer fear the 9 to 5. Here's the paradox. Once you build systems, once you build skills, once you build assets, the 9 to 5 loses power over you. It becomes optional. It becomes leverage. It becomes a choice. And when something becomes a choice, it no longer controls you. Chapter 83. The truth about from nothing. Everyone starts with something. Time, energy, attention, belief. Most waste it. The wealthy deploy it. They treat nothing like raw material and shape it patiently. Chapter 84. The final realization. Getting rich from a 9 to 5 was never about the job. It was about what you did around it, how you used its stability, whether you built beyond it. The job wasn't the cage, your thinking was. Final pause. If this audiobook shifted something inside you, hold on to that, because awareness is the first asset, and discipline is the second. Everything else is built. If this resonated with you, share the chapter that hit hardest and tell us, what topic should the next audiobook break open? This is not the end. It's the beginning of a different life. End of audiobook. Continuation. The afterword that most never hear. Most audiobooks end when the lesson is finished. This one continues because real life doesn't stop when motivation fades. And the truth is, what happens after you understand the path is more important than the path itself. So, let's keep going. Chapter 85. When motivation disappears and character takes over. There will be days when nothing inspires you. No music, no quotes, no fire. Those days reveal who you really are. Because success was never built on excitement. It was built on identity. When action becomes automatic, progress becomes permanent. Chapter 86. The most dangerous lie about money. The lie is this: I'll start when I have more. More time, more energy, more confidence, more money. The wealthy start before those things appear. Action creates clarity. Movement creates momentum. Discomfort creates strength. Waiting creates nothing. Chapter 87. Why most people never cross the line. There is a line between survival and ownership, between working and building, between consuming and producing, between reacting and designing. Most people orbit that line their entire lives. They never cross it, not because they can't, but because crossing requires personal responsibility without excuses. Chapter 88. The power of being boring wealth isn't flashy while it's being built. It's repetitive, predictable, unexciting. The wealthy repeat what works until it compounds. The poor chase what feels new. Boring actions create extraordinary outcomes. Chapter 89. How self-control becomes financial control. Every financial problem begins as an emotional problem: impulse, ego, fear, comparison. When you master your reactions, you master your money. Calm people make clear decisions. Clear decisions create stable wealth. Chapter 90. The moment you realize you've changed, it doesn't happen with fireworks. It happens quietly. You notice. You no longer panic about money. You think long-term naturally. You choose progress over comfort. You trust yourself. That's the real milestone. Chapter 91. Why your past no longer matters. Debt, mistakes, late starts, wrong choices. None of that defines you anymore. Only direction matters now. Momentum erases history. Chapter 92. The final truth about getting rich from nothing. Nothing was never empty. It was unused potential, and now you know how to activate it, not through luck, not through shortcuts, but through systems, patience, and discipline. Final words. Read this slowly. You don't need permission. You don't need approval. You don't need to explain yourself. You only need consistency. The rest will follow. And one day, without announcing it, without proving it, without explaining it, you will look back and realize you built it. If this audiobook stayed with you, share the chapter that changed your thinking and tell us, what should the next audiobook uncover? Because this journey doesn't end here. It evolves. Continuation. The part where most people quit and you don't. If you're still here, listening, reading, absorbing, that already puts you ahead of most people. Because most people stop when things get quiet. They stop when no one is clapping. They stop when progress isn't obvious. They stop when the results lag behind the effort. But this is where the separation truly begins. Chapter 93. The quiet season that builds everything. There is a season no one talks about. A season where you're working, but no one notices. You're improving, but no one praises. You're sacrificing, but no one understands. This season feels lonely, but it's sacred because silence is where foundations are poured. Chapter 94. Why discipline outlives motivation. Motivation is emotional. Discipline is structural. Motivation asks, do I feel like it? Discipline says, this is who I am. The wealthy don't ask their feelings for permission. They act according to identity. They move even when they don't want to, especially when they don't want to. Chapter 95. The day your excuses stop working. There comes a moment, subtle, uncomfortable, unavoidable, when you realize no one is coming to save you. No system is designed for your success. No excuse changes the outcome. That realization hurts, and then it frees you, because responsibility is power in disguise. Chapter 96. The difference between busy and building. Busy feels productive. Building feels slow. Busy fills your calendar. Building fills your future. The trap is confusing motion with momentum. The wealthy eliminate noise. They protect focus. They measure progress, not effort. Chapter 97. Why most people never become dangerously good to become exceptional. You must endure boredom, repetition, refinement, relentless improvement. Most people quit right before mastery appears, because mastery doesn't announce itself. It reveals itself quietly over time. Chapter 98. The internal shift that changes everything. One day, without warning, something changes. You stop needing validation. You stop explaining your goals. You stop reacting to opinions. You become self-directed. That's when progress accelerates, because energy once spent proving yourself is now invested in building yourself. Chapter 99. Money responds to certainty. Money doesn't chase desperation. It follows clarity. When you know what you're building, why you're building it, how you're allocating time and energy, money becomes a byproduct, not a struggle, not a mystery, a consequence. Chapter 100. The most underrated skill in wealth creation. Patience, not passive waiting, but active endurance. Patience with learning. Patience with progress. Patience with compounding. Those who wait correctly win. Chapter 101. When compounding becomes visible. At first, nothing seems to happen. Then slowly, almost invisibly, effort stacks, skills stack, confidence stacks, capital stacks. And suddenly, people think it happened overnight. It didn't. It happened daily. Chapter 102. Why you must outgrow who you were. Your old habits can't carry your new future. Old spending, old thinking, old environments, old conversations. Growth demands separation, not from people, but from patterns. Chapter 103. The moment you realize you've won, winning doesn't feel like celebration. It feels like calm, no panic, no fear, no urgency, just control. Control over time, control over choices, control over direction. That's real wealth. Chapter 104. Read this. When you feel tired, you're not behind, you're becoming. Fatigue is part of transformation. Resistance means growth is happening. Rest if needed, but don't retreat. Chapter 105. The final mindset shift. You don't chase money. You become the person money follows, skilled, disciplined, focused, patient. And once you become that person, you never go back. Closing thought, not an end, a transition. If this audiobook stretched your thinking, it did its job. If it challenged your comfort, good. If it made you uncomfortable, even better. Because comfort never built freedom. And from this point forward, every action you take compounds. This isn't the end of the story. It's the chapter where you take control. Continued when you're ready to go even deeper. Continue continuation. When the vision gets sharper, you've made it past the point where most people turn back. This is no longer about motivation. This is about alignment. Because once your mind aligns with a higher standard, your actions are no longer forced. They are inevitable. Chapter 106. When hard work stops feeling heavy, there is a moment that sneaks up on you. The work is still demanding, the days are still long, the goals are still high, but something feels different. You're no longer dragging yourself forward. You're being pulled by purpose, pulled by clarity, pulled by the certainty that what you're building is worth the cost. This is when effort transforms into momentum. Chapter 107, Why Most People Never Escape the Paycheck Loop. The paycheck feels safe, predictable, comforting, familiar. But safety has a price. It costs you leverage. It costs you time. It costs you upside. The wealthy don't reject work. They reject dependency. They use income as fuel, not as a ceiling. Chapter 108, The Skill Stack That Changes Your Destiny. Wealth is rarely built on one skill. It's built on combinations. Communication plus execution, strategy plus patience, discipline plus adaptability. When skills stack, opportunities multiply. This is why learning never stops. This is why growth compounds faster than money. Chapter 109, The Internal Conversation You Must Master. Before you control money, you must control self-talk. What you say to yourself when plans fail, progress slows, fear appears. That voice determines your ceiling. The wealthy train that voice to be calm, logical, and decisive. No panic, no drama, only response. Chapter 110, Why Consistency Beats Intensity. Every time anyone can go hard for a week, few can go steady for years. Consistency isn't exciting, it's not dramatic, it doesn't look impressive, but it's unstoppable. Small actions repeated relentlessly outperform bursts of effort every time. This is how ordinary people build extraordinary outcomes. Chapter 111, The Day You Stop Seeking Approval. There's freedom in realizing you don't need permission to grow. You don't need validation to move forward. You don't need applause to continue. When approval loses power over you, focus takes its place. And focus changes everything. Chapter 112, Why Time is the Real Currency. Money can be lost and rebuilt. Time only moves forward. The wealthy guard time fiercely. They say no quickly, delegate early, cut distractions ruthlessly. Because time, once invested wisely, pays returns forever. Chapter 113, When Sacrifice Starts Making Sense. Early sacrifices feel unfair. Later, they feel obvious. The nights you stayed in, the things you didn't buy, the comfort you delayed, those weren't losses. They were deposits. And deposits compound. Chapter 114, The Moment You Realize You've Changed. Please like and subscribe if you want a better future for your children, your family, and yourself. It's very difficult to achieve success today, but I'm sure you'll succeed. All you have to do is learn and discover new things. One day, you look back at the old habits, the old fears, the old limitations, and you barely recognize that version of yourself, not because you became someone else, but because you became more disciplined, more aware, more intentional. Growth isn't loud, it's undeniable. Chapter 115, Why Wealth is a Responsibility, Not a Reward. Money magnifies who you already are. It doesn't fix chaos, it exposes it. That's why character comes first. Structure comes first. Self-control comes first. Wealth is safest in disciplined hands. Chapter 116, Read this when doubt returns. Doubt will come back, not because you're failing, but because you're evolving. Each new level brings unfamiliar pressure. Don't interpret discomfort as danger. It's expansion. Chapter 117, The Final Inner Shift Before Breakthrough. You stop asking, "Can I do this?" and start stating, "This is happening." Certainty replaces hesitation. Commitment replaces curiosity. That's when results accelerate. Chapter 118, The Quiet Confidence of Those Who Know. True confidence doesn't announce itself. It moves calmly. It plans patiently. It executes consistently. Those who know don't rush. They build. Pause, not an end. If you feel calmer now, good. If you feel clearer, even better. Because clarity creates speed. And speed, guided by discipline, creates freedom. This journey doesn't end here. It deepens. And when you're ready, we go further. Continued. Continuation. The phase. Most people never reach. This is the part of the journey that doesn't get talked about. Not because it's secret, but because very few people ever arrive here. You are no longer chasing motivation. You are no longer looking for permission. You are no longer asking if it's possible. You are building. Chapter 119, When Discipline Becomes Identity. At first, discipline feels like effort. You force yourself to wake up early. You force yourself to say no. You force yourself to stay consistent. But then something changes. You no longer do discipline. You are disciplined. It becomes part of who you are, not an act, not a phase, an identity, and identities don't break under pressure. Chapter 120, Why the Middle is the Most Dangerous Place. The beginning is exciting. The end is rewarding. The middle is quiet, uncelebrated, lonely. This is where most people quit, not because they failed, but because they stopped feeling progress. But understand this, the middle is where momentum is built. If you survive the middle, the outcome becomes inevitable. Chapter 121, How Rich Thinking Replaces Poor Reactions. Poor thinking reacts. Rich thinking responds. When problems arise, most people panic. The wealthy pause. They ask, what is this teaching me? How do I turn this into leverage? What's the long-term play? This mental shift alone separates struggle from strategy. Chapter 122, The Power of Delayed Reward. Every major breakthrough is built on the ability to wait, to work now for rewards later, to sacrifice today for freedom tomorrow. Delayed gratification isn't deprivation, it's precision. Chapter 123, Why Comfort is the Most Expensive Addiction. Comfort doesn't look dangerous. It feels harmless, soft, inviting. But comfort is expensive. It costs ambition. It dulls urgency. It slows growth. Progress requires friction. Growth requires discomfort. And wealth requires intentional resistance. Chapter 124, The Moment You Stop Explaining Yourself. There's a powerful shift when you stop justifying your choices. You stop explaining why you're busy, why you're saving, why you're working late, why you're building something bigger. You realize people don't need to understand your vision. They'll understand the results. Chapter 125, How Failure Loses Its Power. Failure only hurts when you attach ego to it. When you see failure as feedback, it becomes information, not identity, not defeat, just data. And data makes you dangerous in the best way. Chapter 126, The Quiet Days That Shape Everything. Most progress happens on ordinary days. No breakthroughs, no applause, no drama. Just showing up, executing, refining. These days feel forgettable, but they are the foundation. Chapter 127, Why Money Follows. Value, not wishes. Money doesn't respond to need, it responds to usefulness. The more value you create, the more money flows toward you. This is why wealth isn't taken. It's attracted. Focus on becoming valuable. Money will catch up. Final truth. Why you were always capable. You didn't lack intelligence. You didn't lack talent. You didn't lack opportunity. You lacked belief and structure. Now you have both, and that combination is unstoppable. So remember this. You didn't escape the 9 to 5 to become rich. You escaped it to become dangerously self-reliant. And once you reach that state, the world has nothing left to control you with. This is not the end. This is the beginning of operating on your own terms.